Just gonna start with the sing along. Everybody turn their mics on and
That would be wonderful. Okay, so good
oh,
morning. Uh,
morning.
good morning, Mr. J. Jack,
Hello, hello.
affectionately known as J. Jack, the J.
Mhm.
Jack.
Well,
So
just
welcome to ATech High School, and thank you for joining us.
everybody.
Um,
So
I'm recording now.
that's okay. Thank you for being here, everybody.
So if any of you guys want to turn on your cameras, obviously, you're welcome to. If you'd like to, maybe turn on your camera just for a quick minute.
Or even if you just had a question, you can
Good
turn the camera on.
morning,
Yep.
and introduce yourself and just say good morning to J Jack, and then you can keep your camera off for the rest of the interview. But it is nice just to
Mhm.
say hello that way with the camera on.
Yep.
But of course, you don't have to.
They don't want you to know they're still in bed.
I know, which is
I've thought about it at times. Like I'm just gonna teach from bed. I'm just gonna keep the camera off and just be lying down. And you
well,
never
you know
just.
that people have been doing it. Like they,
Well, of course. I mean, it's a different situation. I mean, I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, I think that if I was in high school, man, I probably would have done the same thing. I
okay.
can't even
So
imagine.
introduce yourself to us. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do currently, and then we'll backtrack.
Okay. So I'll start with currently. Like currently, I'm a high school art teacher. It's actually CTE teacher. I teach career and financial management, and I teach digital art, sometimes drawing. But I'm from Richmond Hill, Queens, originally Jackson Heights. I'm a first generation American and first generation artist. My father's from Croatia, my mother's from Ireland. Oh, St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh wow! Happy St. Patrick's Day.
So yeah, I'm 50% Irish, 50% Croatian. But like, I think that being from New York and being a first generation artist kind of starts you out with like I feel like it's like a kind of a disadvantage because you don't know what you're doing and you don't have a lot of backup. I think I've thought about this a lot. Like, tell me if I'm getting off topic. I feel like I have a
No,
tendency to just kind of
we like
go
we
off.
like we like artist tangents. I do, at least. Go
Well,
for it.
it's I kind of lost my train of thought. Um,
First generation. It's interesting because I am also a first generation
no kidding.
artist. I'm half Iranian and half French, and first generation American.
Yeah,
And I'm also a CTE art teacher. So we have a lot of similarities.
it's true. It's true.
No, but what you were saying was that that
Right.
it's hard.
Starting at a disadvantage. Right. Right. Because yeah, I mean, it's not. People are harsh. I mean, in Queens, man, people are mean. In New York, people who are from New York have got it's like all trauma. You deal with so much trauma. People are hard on you.
Yeah.
And it is tiring and hard. And it's like, yeah, the thing I was trying to say, I just remember was that the the safety net. It's like when you're from New York, you're Queens. It's not like we have like this giant safety net of money. So it was like the hard part for being an artist for me was that it's like you have money, then you don't have money, then you have money, and you don't have money. So it worked out great for me just having art as a path. I think that that was like the greatest thing for me. And I always recommend that if you have a passion, you just keep it right in front of you at all times because, I went to, God, my middle schools. You all New Yorkers must have had a horrifying middle school. I went to Rockaway Boulevard. I went to junior high school 226, which is like,
Was your middle school tough?
yeah,
Look at this.
I missed the last 2 weeks of middle school because someone punched me in the eye and they got suspended and they say imagine this, the school said, you probably shouldn't come back until
They said that to you?
and they're like, we're not really allowed to say this, but you probably shouldn't come back.
Oh my gosh.
Mm, very, very violent school.
Wow.
It's like both, I feel both humbled by it and still scarred by it. But No, so the thing I was trying to get across was like this middle school, as horrifying as it was, the art teacher there said, "Oh, you should go to art and design high school."
Oh, you're
And so
kidding.
no, and so like and
Oops.
I've been all through New York City public school. So the this teacher was just like, "Oh, you're, he was always so nice." He said, "I always appreciate that you draw," because nobody drew, nobody did anything. And so he's like, "I always appreciate that you do the lessons and you do such good stuff, and you always hang out my work." And he just said, "This is like not having any support as a first generation artist. Is like my family's from Europe, so they don't know anything about the New York City school system.
Right.
So when I'm going to high school, it's all on me." And so
So did
having
you have a, sorry to interrupt you, but did
no,
middle school art teacher recommended high school for art and design? And did you, is
no,
that the high school you went to?
no. I had no. It's like,
Oh,
yeah,
good.
it cracks me up the whole way through my life. It's just like I don't know what to do, and I'd be like, "All right, what should I do?" Well, I like art, so I should go to an art school. So apply for high school of art and design. I actually applied for the school I'm currently working at, Bayside High School.
Oh, you're
And,
kidding.
and, and the weird, I just found my portfolio from my audition to Bayside High School
Wow. That's cool.
to be a pack rat. No, so like it was just that. So I had one suggestion. So this teacher says you should go to art and design high school, and I'm like, all right, I'll go to. That's what I'm going to apply to. I applied to art and design high school, so I went to art and design high school, and then it's like you get to art and design high school. It's kind of a mess at the time. It's the most beautiful school in the world now. They have like stained glass in the cafeteria. Anyway,
Wow.
being from a different era. So anyway, so I
I've been
do,
there, but I don't remember seeing that stained glass.
yeah, in the cafeteria,
Okay.
it's just white, the cafeteria, and you look up and this angelic white cafeteria, and then stained glass by Art Spiegelman. Anyway, so the what happened to me, I go to art design high school, and then you're going to graduate. Like, well, I should go to college. What should I do? I guess I should go to art school because I like art. So I've had people say to me, like from my neighborhood, like, "Oh, you were always so lucky. You're so lucky that you had art." I was like, why? What does that even mean? And then you realize like people are going to college and like they don't know why they're going to college. Like they might think like, oh, I'm just going to take, oh God, I don't know, right? So it's having that passion that to like connect you to things, just like this automatic thing that gives you an advantage. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it's like I always had a straight path. I mean, a winding path eventually, but you always have this thing that guides you through.
So this is a little bit of an early, this is a question that I end up asking, I guess, later in the interviews. But so for you, when you were in high school, you started really early knowing what you wanted to pursue and what you wanted to focus on. So what can you say to my um, high school students, not just seniors, but
Well, I
what
mean,
advice,
just
what advice do you have for students that love art but are unsure whether or not that's what they want to pursue in college?
well, I mean, what I've come to find is that actually, I have a really funny story about this from Richmond Hill, Queens. Somebody once said to me, I don't know how we grew up in the same neighborhood. And he was saying, like, I've been in like over 300 fights, like going out late at night and just like, and that day I was coming home from middle school and I was absolutely furious about something that went down. And so while he's saying this to me on the phone, I'm drawing a picture of Spider-Man wearing a turtleneck. And then he was like, I don't know how. And I just had that moment where I was like, I don't know how we live such different lives. And I'm like, because I had a place for my anger. I had a place for my frustration. I had a place for living, just taking these things and expressing them without having to internalize it. So I had a place to let go of these things. So you're always going to have people saying, this is so common when you're an artist, especially a young artist. It'll be like, you're so excited about your work and you're like, what do you think of this, to an adult? And they're like, wow, you must have a lot of free time. And it was like, I remember I still can feel like like a gunshot to the chest. You're just like, oh God. Or
Totally
like,
deflating.
and it's people who don't know how to support your creativity. So I think the number one thing is just like use it as a tool for yourself to just express yourself. Like, because I think of it as like two kinds of artwork. Like personal artwork that's expressive. It could be abstract, it could be collage. I mean, wait, look at this kind of stuff. Like, why do I need this? Um,
Oh
but
my
I
God,
was just,
wait, hold that up again. That's adorable.
and it's like there's certain things with this stuff. Like I was um someone sticking their tongue out, and like, what am I going to do with these things, right? But it was so, and I have a 3-year-old
The more
daughter.
important question is not why do you need this, but why did you make it in the first place?
Well, I mean, I just came to enjoy it. Like this is why I wound up being a teacher, is because I started working with elementary school kids, and you start to see how much natural ability they have, but they don't realize it. And same all for all of you. Like think about how critical you are of your own work. And I mentioned other people too. Other people are going to be critical of your work, and you kind of have to learn how to withstand it. Hey, I've been told that I'm talentless and wasting my life. No joke, really. And the thing is, like, I that could have completely dissuaded me from being an artist. But
Who said that to you? Do you remember? Of course.
I do, but I'm not going into it.
Right. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's and the crazy thing about it, I was so traumatized by that I couldn't remember for years what it was that they said. It was like this mental block, and I was like, God, I remember being so angry, but what was it that they said? It took years.
Wow, to remember
And
that.
yeah, and I have I mean, it would be like an interesting study, but like I couldn't draw for weeks after that. Like my drawings had like become like this very distinct, weird. For 2 weeks, I had this weird style that I had never drawn in. And this is what I mean about like anger. Like I was furious, I was sick and just disheartened by that. And I just accidentally, just because it became like art became like a coping skill for me. And so actually this is actually a good thing to bring up. So especially for art, like or anybody in high school, I had, for my last year of school, I had type 1 diabetes. I'm a type 1 diabetic. So I had a really bad year that year. And
Senior. Mhm.
yeah, and I didn't know what it was. So I just, like, the number one thing is like health, always health. First thing is health. And I think that this is I'd say, like, get a job with insurance, go to Starbucks, get a job with insurance, because if you don't have your health, it's not going to work for you. And I've really struggled through the years trying to manage my health. It's very, very hard. And teaching has been great for that, because it gave me, you remember I mentioned about like being from New York, it's like no money, and teaching has leveled me off, but it's also protected my health, so I never fall into like a real slump with my health. And bring it to, I find that during all these hard times, I'm like looking into like those self-help books, and it's like how to be successful, how to be more organized.
Mhm.
None of them ever say get insurance and make sure that you're healthy. It's never the first thing.
Wow.
And
So
so, like,
are you advocating, obviously, teaching as a
yeah.
potential
Well,
profession for artists?
I think that the interesting thing for me was that when I started teaching, actually, I did an after school art program at the school my elementary school that I went to. So it made me realize that like all of my encouragement came from my art teachers. All of it. Like it was just like that was like the thing that always brought me through. And it never even occurred to me that they knew how to encourage you. I remember, this is like first grade. I remember doing a drawing in kindergarten and getting a compliment from my teacher. And then one day in first grade, I did the same drawing because I remember he complimented it. And he said, "Wow, I remember you did that last year." And that, like, I never forgot that moment because he
Wow.
remembered it. So that also ties into what I think all artists should do. And most artists, like in high school, you probably already have a certain community of people around you who are artists. And I think finding people who will be supportive of you is the most important thing. And also being devoted to it. Like that moment when someone told me I'm talentless, right? Like that was one of those like out of body moments. Like one, it's like almost like blackout rage, but it's also like um, a moment where I realized that they're just trying to hurt me. Like I think we all get very reactive. Like someone says something to you, you're automatically angry. Like you want to yell at somebody, but sometimes you just have that moment where it's like, And I was dedicated to my art, and I worked so hard that I knew that that wasn't true.
Mhm.
And so I had that moment where it was like, they're really just trying to hurt me. And so I was able to kind of like let that slide off. I mean, it didn't just slide off. I mean, but I didn't, you know.
So I love what you said about, you and the other person, both growing up in exactly the same neighborhood in Queens, and yet having like that person, I'm assuming it was a
Mhm.
male,
Yeah.
gotten into 300 fights.
Mhm.
And at that time you were drawing Spider-Man in a turtleneck.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
And
that's amazing. But my question is, so you were drawing comic characters way back when as
well,
well.
actually, see, that's like something interesting too. Is that as a young person, I fell into the thing where my art wasn't mine anymore. It was the thing that it was supposed to be. And so I remember many moments where I was like,
Yeah, so let's talk about that.
yeah,
So, sorry, I'm
no, no,
interrupting.
but it's the I was just like an incessant doodler, cartoonist, and there was that thing where there's always that kid in school who draws like a perfect Betty Boop, and everyone's screaming about how great it is, and like, hey, draw me Betty Boop, and they're
My
just
kids don't probably know who Betty Boop is.
oh, well, not even Betty Boop. Let's say Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse. Someone has like the perfect Bart Simpson, whatever it is, or like Dragon Ball Z character.
Right, because they're copying. They
Yeah,
start off copying.
right. But there's a talent in that too, because that's like proportion and measurement, and
Yeah.
there's something. My daughter's screaming in the background. But there is a talent in that, and some
In
people have.
China, in art school, when I've seen documentaries about this, um, artists that are training in China, the first lessons they have you do are to replicate a master work
Mhm.
perfectly. So they're not copying
Right.
Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse, but
But you
they
see,
want
I
you to get
think
that skill first.
right. But I also think the thing that I always say about that is like, do you want that skill? Because I think there's always this focus on like realism because that's always going to get a reaction. It's like, look, you drew a dog and it looks like a dog.
So
But then,
do you need that skill is the more important
well, I
question.
mean, oh, if you want to, I think that's the thing that happens is that you start to think this is the only thing that people react to. So that's the only thing I should be doing. And this is where I say, like, look, I show this to my mom. What's she going to say? Nothing. Like I've worked on paintings for like months, and then I show it to my mother. She's like, "What's that white spot?" I'm like, "What white spot? What are you talking about?" And they don't. It's like they don't see anything.
Right.
So I think like this is something that I used to do the cartooning because there was a freedom in it. Because if I try to draw a Batman perfectly, someone's gonna say, "Oh, his face looks weird. Oh, you messed up his arm." That's a quote that I got. I did a drawing of a realistic person and I made it very stylized, and someone says, "The leg is weird."
Mhm.
Never stops, right?
So um, I'm going to switch over to uh, the. I just want to show the Padlet just very quickly.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
Find it. Yeah. So actually, maybe I should stop sharing my screen and
Yeah.
I'll look for it first.
But I just yeah,
Some of our students, that was some of their questions. Well,
yeah,
before I get into that,
yeah, yeah.
let's talk about what you are making. What kind of art are you making now, and is it connected to what you used to make? And
Well, yeah, I think that art school was very traumatic because I had to, I was in the illustration program
high
and
school or college?
college.
Okay, so
In
let's talk
college,
college.
oh, right. This is another part of that journey. High school, I go to high school because a teacher says you should go there. And no other, and no other reference point. And then another person said, then after high school, where do I go to high school? Oh, there's ads for SVA all over the subway. I'll go to SVA. And that's how I went to SVA. Just like there's ads on the subway and they look nice. So I was like, oh, I'll go to SVA.
School of Visual Arts.
Yeah. And this is like, again, like that first generation artist thing, first generation American is that you don't have that automatic knowledge of like, this college does this and that college does that. And that is a huge amount of work for anybody who's not going to have that help. Um, but let's see what else. I mean, in
So,
general, yeah.
so you go to School of Visual Arts and
Mhm.
you majored in illustration?
Yeah, and that was a weird moment too because I don't know if they're cartoon. I wanted to do comic books and cartooning, and they kind of just pushed me toward illustration, which is something I had an interest in, but I wanted to go into cartooning more. And that was something, and this, I would imagine this doesn't happen now. I feel like cartooning is much more well respected and treated with more regard. And it's surprising that at that time that that would happen. But
Especially at an art school.
I know I found it very strange because
Why do you think I have my suspicions why they did that? Why do you think that they pushed you out of the comic division and into illustration?
well, because like I think, and this is again like the thing, your art has to be. So I always wanted to draw comics, but I was so intimidated by it because throughout this whole, I still feel this like I'm not meant to be an artist. Like, oh, I'm not the kind of person that's supposed to be an artist. And then it's still, I still have that, but I found a way to make my art something that's mine, and I don't stress about what other people say about it. But I still get that kind of intimidation. And I feel very lucky that I haven't lost it. You meet so many adults who are just like, oh, I don't have time. And I feel like I've been able to, my art's been able to adapt to my situation. But what was I saying? We were just talking about college, right?
Yeah, I was asking, why do you think that
Oh,
at School of Visual Arts, they pushed you
right,
from the focusing
right.
on comics and into the illustration department? So I
Yes.
have my suspicion, but I'm
Well,
curious what.
what they said to me was that I don't have any comics in my portfolio, which I thought was, it's like you have mostly still images or single images, so therefore you're an illustrator.
Oh, I
And
see.
and there is a logic to that, and I did want to do that. Was always my goal, was to do like magazine illustration and comics and art and design actually, which I actually think it's funny because the a teacher at art and design said to me, uh, the person who has the ability to work in multiple styles will get more jobs. And it's actually become completely untrue.
I disagree with that as well.
Yeah, and back then though, I think like he was a freelance artist, and so he could apply for a job, and he's got paintings, he's got drawings, he's got charcoal, he's got all these different options for someone to choose from. And so like maybe back then it was harder to find artists that you'd probably want that more, variety. But
Right.
currently it's like if you're not a brand and you're not doing, this is what people used to say to me, is like you have too many styles. And I'm like, how is that a bad thing? How is that bad?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think teaching has been great because it allows me to explore so many different realms without worrying about my portfolio and my, like this isn't productive. That used to haunt me because it would be this, I shouldn't be doing this because this is my portfolio. And I have to be developing this and have to be working to build a brand for myself.
Would you mind showing us some of your work? I don't know how you would
Oh,
prefer
here.
to do
Well,
that.
I
Let me
mean,
see.
I would typically just go through Instagram because
Okay, cool.
that's like the most current stuff I have. I could share my screen.
That would be great. That's actually your Instagram is what I was showing my students yesterday.
How do I share? I'm sorry, I'm not
That's okay.
blanking on
There's,
Zoom. I usually use Google Meet. Where's
oh,
the
okay.
share
Yeah, there's
button?
at the bottom, there's a green.
Oh, there it is. Got it.
Yep.
Share screen. Okay. Or I could do this.
So now we'll see your
Yeah,
message.
yeah. Okay. Got it. Got it. Got it.
Awesome.
Yep. So this is the stuff that I do, and I find actually really some of these I'm really very proud of, and it really is just exploration and like,
Yeah, why don't you show us your favorites?
well, I mean, I love this. Like I've gotten really excited about doing stuff like this and like building in texture. And I noticed in newspapers that you could see the text on the back. So I took some text and I reversed it and I bladed over it. And
Oh, the back.
I guess, and this is one of those things that I've always been interested in. I used to do sketches like this in college, and I couldn't draw it. I would like try to draw Archie Bunker, and I wouldn't be able to. So like this kind of thing would be frustrating for me. But
So now
now
you're
Photoshop,
using, I'm assuming, yeah, Photoshop too. So Photoshop as a tool is helping you as an illustrator. I mean, obviously it
and
helps all of us.
right, and now here, there's another one. Like think about the guy who said, "I've been in over 300 fights. This is me." Wait, that's not the one. I have Batman throwing a watermelon, which I think is hilarious. I mean, even stuff like
Yeah,
this. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. Where's
here he is. Who's asking me to make Batman throwing a watermelon? I mean, I'm a member of well, I host an animation club on Fridays.
Oh, cool.
And since we've gone remote, we've been doing weekly challenges. So that was a challenge, someone throwing something.
So
This,
your animations actually that you've been posting on Instagram, I love
oh, thank
watching.
you. It was,
And I actually, that's how James is visiting us, because I reached out to him to ask him how is he making these animations, because they're so super cool. Um, and can you show us a few more animations and then talk to us about how you're making them?
I was so excited by this. I'm scared this is going to be really loud.
No, go for it.
Why is it doing that? Hello? Oh, I see.
There you go.
And it's not letting me make it
Oh, push
unmuted,
the
but
play button and then maybe.
it's not working.
Oh, bummer.
Well, anyway, the thing about this one is like I put the sound of wind blowing the brush, and it was just the simplest thing. It's two frames, and you create this kind of weird, I don't know, very atmospheric thing. Well, actually, more animation. So the animation thing has been very cathartic for me because sometimes you just don't have a lot of time to draw. Hey, there's my first job, one of my first art jobs. I was 16 years old. How in the world did I manage to get a job when I was 16? It was a friend of a
That's
friend.
amazing. Tell us what is that? What did you do there? What is that job when you were
This
16?
was at it was like a sweatshop. It was an embroidery factory that was so unbearably hot that I would be soaked with sweat every day. And I still showed up every 5 days a week for the entire summer,
Wow.
and then worked on the weekends at a comic book shop. So this was just the weirdest experience, but it was amazing too. Just, I had one of the friends at the comic shop. His father worked at an embroidery factory, and they needed an artist. I wonder if they paid me less, but it was just there was a whole new system for this that I had to figure out, and it was very slightly uncomfortable with certain things, but as a learning experience, just like unbelievable. Let's see what else.
So what's the name of the oh, we were looking at those half ones. That one
Oh,
is so
God.
creepy.
I know, but you know what it was? I couldn't remember what it was at first. It's the texture. You see the texture of his skin? How it
Oh,
weirdly matched the. It's just ridiculous.
it
How much?
really matched the cone. So is that what triggered the connection?
Yeah, and because the thing is, like when you're doing half and half, sometimes it's very complicated and it can be very awkward. So I tried to kind of modify it so that there was some room for going in a different direction. And I thought that it was pretty successful. It was a really fun lesson. And some people really got it, but the Photoshop can be. How about Justin Bieber's Iron Man? Is not. I said Iron Man, RoboCop. Oh my gosh. Oh, and that
Oh my God,
Miley
that's a
Bieber,
good one. That's what is her name?
Miley
Miley
Cyrus,
Cyrus.
and it worked out pretty well. Some of them would just work automatically. Some of them are really don't just kind of fall apart.
So guys, those of you who haven't seen his work before, um, this is, I mean, it's obvious to me, but go back to that one. That's so what Jay Jack did was he took half
Oops,
Miley
yeah,
Cyrus, half Justin Bieber, and
yeah.
put them together.
And this is where I used to feel so afraid and guilty about experimenting like this, but being a teacher, I find that versatility is good for me.
Hmm.
So I guess it's weird, like finding a place where your skills are valuable. And
Hmm.
I think the diversity of what I do is I think has been very successful for me as a teacher and very helpful too.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess it's just finding a place that will
Can you?
value what you do.
I'm sorry to interrupt
Yeah,
you. Can you open up that illustration there, the
which
one
one?
above, the animation, the one in the
Oh,
pastel.
I love this. 15 frames. It blows my mind. But I think like these delight me so much. Like being able to create things like this. It's 15 drawings. And
So talk to us about how you're making these animations.
Flip a clip. I cannot recommend Flip a clip enough.
Okay. So what
And,
is Flip a Clip?
uh, and,
Tell
and
our people.
yeah, it's this free app that you can just download.
Okay.
And I mean, this is my favorite one I've ever done. I couldn't believe it. I still find with art, how I'm so self-critical that I'm still blown away that I could do any of this.
Oh, I love that one.
I mean, I can't even believe that I made that. I stared at this for about an hour just watching it over and over again. Complete disbelief, and I think
Those of you who are in this Zoom call, no, you will be downloading Flip a Clip. You will be making
it
your
is
own.
so fun, and I think the coolest thing about it is that you just kind of learn, like, actually, wait, you learn animation just by, like, this one is so simple. The way that water works, like, I just moved clouds around, and look at the waves at the bottom. That's just a line. It's just drawing a line. So all I did was just draw a line, and it looks like water. So you start to figure out things like motion and movement, and as
So
I the more I do these, the smoother they get. I could show you some, like, of my earliest ones, and they were so just like choppy and awkward, and it got better so fast. Hold on, let me go back. So, like, look how awkward that is. And this is when I was first trying to figure it out. And you can see how it evolves as they go through it. Like, all of a sudden I start to figure it out. And that took
so
absolutely
what is it? What is it? Explain to us what it is that you figured out exactly. Like I
it,
can see
yeah.
that your illustration style looks more sophisticated as the animation goes, but
Well, it's funny that I think that this is like a thing that cripples people artistically, but I find that I go in with a very concrete idea of what I want. And
okay.
so I'm like, okay, this is gonna be, and sometimes it works. Like that UFO one, it worked. I couldn't believe it.
So what did you go in, what did you want to accomplish when you started the UFO one?
I was just like motion, and I accidentally did something that I knew how to do. I was like, okay, I know how to make something look like it's moving fast. And so I started that one with nothing. I didn't have a concrete idea at all. I just went in there, I drew a shape, and it became a UFO. But the ones where I go in there with a very concrete idea, I find myself very frustrated. But the coolest thing about it is that I just, it's like a thing that I realize is a strength of mine, is that I just persist. It maybe because I use art as a coping skill. So when it doesn't work, I just morph it into something else.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is, like, I could delete, if I wanted to, I could delete the whole first half of these animations and just take one section of it and develop that into something else. But I always find that when I start with a very, very concrete idea, and this is all based on my schedule and how much time and energy I have. I find myself so tired that I do these to just, it's like just like meditating, like jogging, like just taking a walk for me.
It relaxes you.
Yeah, and so I'm not putting pressure on myself. If I was trying to be an animator, I would have to. I would say, like, this has to be a certain way. I have a friend who's a computer animator for, like, movies and in art design high school, and he I was looking at his Instagram. I was like, "You deleted a whole bunch of stuff." And he's like, "Well, I have to make sure that I'm not misrepresenting my work." He has to make sure that he's putting the best of the best out there.
Oh, I see. So
Right. And so, yeah, but I'm lucky in that, this, as an educator, I can approach this from the perspective of someone who's learning, and I could be someone who's comfortable sharing the fact that I don't know what I'm doing sometimes.
and that your work may not be perfect and
Yeah.
on brand. And
And it,
can
like,
you
yeah.
scroll back up on your screen
Mhm.
to the animation that you were just showing us on your phone,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the one that you said started off kind of rough. It was the black and white one. Um,
Um, Wait, do you mean down? The one that like, here, all these things, like this one too. It was like, I'm gonna draw this guy walking, and I was like, yeah, I can't. I don't know what I'm doing. I was just gonna make him, like, walking, and it just became this study instead of And this one, let me see this one. There's another one where it's like I didn't know what I was doing. I just playing.
uh-huh.
And actually, the younger people probably don't know him, but John Cleese. I used to look up things about being more, um, not creative, but being more successful creatively, like working better. Remember what I was always thinking about, like the doing something better. Like, no one ever says health, but he said the best thing that I've ever heard of if you want to be successful as an artist, you have to approach it with a sense of play. And it was such an interesting thing, and I feel like I've kind of made it there. Like this stuff, like this is playful. I'm not making it for anybody, but it's like it's how I stay in shape in a way.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this is actually the work this is what I was trying to brand myself as.
I was looking at that one yesterday.
Yeah, this is what I was trying to do.
This one
And
reminds me of Escher's hand.
oh yeah, that's right. But this ended up being very, very time consuming. But if I had just kept doing it, it would have gotten easier. It wasn't very hard, but when it came down to like mistakes or things that I couldn't resolve, it got exhausting. So this style was really fun and I loved it, but it was kind of destructive when it came to troubleshooting.
Mhm.
So it's a matter of like, if you really want to go into the arts, like I can't recommend it enough. If I did not go, I spent 8 years trying to be a full-time artist, and I had a million part-time jobs, which I love. But
Do
you know,
any of the students on the call have any questions for J Jack? I meant to ask you if you had questions earlier. Please feel free to, unmute your mic and at any time and interrupt him.
it's fine. I mean, just in general, I just feel like you do it for you and just enjoy it for yourself. I'm always practicing. I do want to I'm pretty good at realism, but it's not my main focus. But if I want to do it, I can do it. I spend a lot of time. Actually, somebody asked a question about this.
Yeah, one of my students, he's not here
Mhm.
today, but yes, Jaquel was asking, he was drawn to this one. Talk to us about this one.
So this is just funny. I mean, this is one of those things that I just do to make myself laugh. Like, and honestly, like looking when I make artwork, I often am just like almost like crying, laughing at the dumbest things that I can come up with. And this, if people may not know about this stuff now, but in the old days, vintage postcards are just incredibly weird. If you ever look at old postcards, like these are the kind of things that they would have like at like a gas station for tourists. And you look back at some of these things, you're like, what were they thinking? And so actually, if I kind of like have come to the a way of looking at myself as almost like a character artist. Like in movies, you have those superstars who are like, this is that huge actor like The Rock or Vin Diesel, two bald muscle guys. But I find that I just like to do things that can be read as having been done by somebody. I like to pretend that I didn't make this and that I found it.
Oh, I see. That's cool.
And so I look at this and I imagine myself digging through a box of vintage postcards and I would be like, oh my God, I have got to own that. But it makes no sense. Laugh and I laughs with you.
Right.
He's got a Guns and Roses pendant on him, and it's a gorilla's body with some hipster guy with a beard, and Anne Hathaway's eyes.
Honesty tattoo.
It is just so dumb. No, I like it. I mean, it's how random is that? Like, this is a real tattoo that somebody had, and it was like they got a Morrissey tattoo on their eye, and then they crossed it out. That's a real thing.
I
Someone
don't
really
know if
did
our
it.
students know who that is. That's like someone we were
Yeah,
listening to in the
yeah,
80s.
yeah, he's a very depressed musician, and
From the
it's like,
Smiths, right?
yeah. But I just, kind of fell in love with experimenting and just trying different things. It's like, just throwing challenges at myself. Like I took this face. Actually, I could show you how I did this.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I cut it up. It was like a skeleton. Oh, I didn't go far enough, but I just took a skull, I cut it up into little pieces, and then I found a way to connect the gaps that I created. Oh, sorry, Donald. And these are also like just like Photoshop experiments. Like some of them just come together so well.
You've got such a like, there's such a creep factor to
Oh
sometimes I
God.
see your work, I'm like, oh, but it's
I'm sorry. It makes me, yeah, this one.
that one. So go back to that. Oh
Oof,
God,
I know. I
that. So you've got that one, the eyeball
mhm,
on top of the face.
yeah.
Scroll back down,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and then you have the illustration to the right of it. So talk to us about how
Ah,
you went from A to B. So a lot of our, AP art
Right.
students need.
Right. So this is actually something that I've thought about for years, but I remember being surprised, like I could make something like this and it never really gets much of a reaction. That's been like shocking to me because I could build an image out of like 500 images and then someone looks at it and I'll be like, that's also one of the misleading things about social media is like you could draw something and be absolutely amazed by it and then four people like it. And you're like, what happened? What did I do wrong? I posted the wrong time? Like what? And I'm not like looking for that validation. I feel it within myself, but it's surprising sometimes. But
Right.
I find sometimes that people don't understand Photoshop illustration.
Okay.
I mean, it's not, yeah, they don't understand photo illustration. It doesn't really get the reaction. And so I decided to try to use it as I was going to use this as a drawing reference. And then what I realized is I could actually turn it into a drawing or make it look like a drawing just by using Photoshop work.
The filters.
I love it. I'm just
So
so excited by that.
I have to say that I prefer this one to the
Yeah, right.
I do. And I think that I mean you're still using Photoshop, but like you
Mhm.
said, you're taking it to the next level and
Right.
you're yeah.
No, and that's one of the things that I've realized is that these um, things that I'm doing just for fun, they have there's a lot of things I can do with them. The creep factor is funny for me because when I that's another one of those the two things actually comic book stuff and horror stuff.
Okay,
When
yeah.
I was a
Talk about
kid,
why you like those two things.
yeah, but there's a reason why though. When I was a young person, I was so intimidated by drawing realistic comics because you always get that criticism, like you drew Batman wrong. And so I started to avoid it and only do abstract, like mushy cartoons
Okay.
because it would only be my thing. So there's a huge excitement for me being able to kind of copy them, accurately, or at least I can now approach it with a sense of play. Even though when I was a kid, I would be so afraid of doing it wrong.
Mhm.
And now, like, I could just do whatever I want. Look, like, that's not perfect, not at all. But now I have the freedom to kind of approach it in my own way. Like the horror, when I was a kid, horror stuff, I hated it, absolutely hated it. And then as I got older, I kind of appreciated the craft of it. And I
Okay.
know I really get upset when people look at things like this and get sick because I know what that used to feel like for me. But when I look at that, I just remember how much stuff, how many different layers I used and how much work
You
I
mean
did to
that
blend.
that Trump one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel bad about it. Like I've put up like warnings before, like for a John Travolta thing I did years ago. But like when I look at oh, it's disgusting. I'm sorry. But it makes me laugh. It kills me. I just think
That's
it's so
okay.
funny.
Do
So
any do any of our students or adults on the line, does anybody have a question for J Jack?
I'm gonna post it in the chat. It's okay. But
Yeah, you can post your questions in the chat too if you wish.
and here's another weird Photoshop thing. God, do you all use Photoshop? Did you know that there's something called
Yes, they all do.
it is insane, properties. You go into properties and there's a button that says remove background. You think about all the years I've spent cutting things out in Photoshop, like carefully drawing a line around it,
Uh-huh. Selection
editing.
tools.
You go into, yeah, but now you just go into
I
property.
didn't know that. Is this a new thing?
Yes, and every day it's so embarrassing that there'll be these moments where I'm like, "Wait, when did that happen?" There's so many new things happening in all these programs, but when I discovered remove background, it
Uh-huh.
just oh
Game
my
changer?
god. Think about the hours I've lost cutting things out in the past, and now I was just doing that as a test. I know the Trump thing, some people are not really into that stuff, but, these are, again, like,
What are
just
those?
wooden sculptures, and this is all about how and this is like one of those weird psychological things you learn about yourself. So I am a really devoted illustrator, and so I know when my energy is bad that I'm not going to be able to live up to my expectations of myself. So there was a moment in the summer where I was kind of my daughter started waking up at like 5 a.m. and so I was in this horrible stressed out exhausted state, And
Mhm.
so I started picking up drift. We would go to the beach, her and I live near the beach in Long Beach, New York. From Queens. Long Beach is my favorite place in New York City. But I started picking up driftwood on the beach when we would go to the beach, and then just
Yeah, open up another one.
and I just started absent-mindedly carving these things while I was watching TV. Like that's what it started with.
Mhm.
And the wood is kind of like wet and kind of damaged, and I would just take an X-Acto blade and just kind of like I just started breaking away all of the wood to
Mhm.
see what was left. And so it starts out with this, just like this dirty, sandy piece of wood. And then I just started basically like it's so water damaged that it would just literally brush away like just dust.
Mhm.
And so just pushing it away, and then
Oh, that's
got
cool.
to this, and
Oh,
like
wow.
what? And it's one of those things where like if I saw this at a museum, I'd be like, what? Who cares? What's the point? I mean, I wouldn't say that now. I wouldn't say that now. But years ago, if I saw this at a museum, I'd be like, who? What is the?
Well,
Like I'd be
anything
so
with the work of like Noguchi and Brancusi and
yeah. But
so who are some of your favorite artists, uh,
yeah,
famous or otherwise? Like who are your favorite people? Who do you go to for inspiration?
I mean, I have a lot of comic book artists like that. I just love like the I even that like comic book artists is one of the reasons I wanted to become a teacher is because so many. I'm sorry if I'm going off on a tangent here, but the comic artists would get ill and they didn't have insurance, and they would have like all these ads in these magazines. They would say, "This artist, one of my favorite Batman artists, had a stroke," and it was
Who
like
is it?
his name was Norm Brayfogle, and I just loved his work. And he drew with such amazing energy, and then he had a stroke, and he lost the ability to draw.
Wow.
And then what he can't make a living anymore, and so he was basically all of his savings were gone overnight because he didn't have insurance. And that kind of stuff is so scary to me, especially as a type 1 diabetic. Like, but my favorite artists, like I have so many favorite artists. It's kind of like this is by an artist named Wally Wood, and I just redrew it. I mean, it probably would be like a lot of comic artists. Like Jack Kirby is my actually. I can show. Can I share my? Am I still sharing? I'm
You
still
are.
sharing the screen. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you
Uh,
are still sharing your screen.
can
Can you
I?
look up
Can you
uh
see this?
yeah, yeah,
The Batman. I think I'm sharing a different screen. Hold on a sec. New
you're
share.
on your Instagram right now.
Yeah, yeah. Let me switch to Photoshop.
Um
Yeah, this one. So this is I inked this. This is a sketch by Jack Kirby.
so tell us what that means you inked it because not everyone will know what that means.
Yeah, let me turn it on. Still on one. Sorry, there's too many layers, man.
This is
Oh,
nice.
there it is. There. No, I got
Since
it. I got
you've
it.
been in Instagram for so long,
Yeah.
um, we've got 10 more minutes. I'd love to see how you work in Photoshop here. So this is perfect.
So this is how I inked it, and I had a pencil drawing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
tell us.
Here's a tip for everybody:
Not
label your
everyone knows what
files.
inking is. So you start with a pencil sketch.
Yeah, label your files in Photoshop. I was just like picking around with this. I wasn't taking it very
Like
seriously.
in your layers.
Yeah, I mean, I usually try to label my. Oh, there it is. There it is. Got it. Okay, let me turn this off. This is the pencil sketch I started with,
So
and
this is
then
like your bottom layer.
I worked over it with the lasso tool. This is how I like to draw in Photoshop. I still have not mastered the tablets. I'm not really into tablets. I
It's
try and try and try.
hard, right?
I don't know. I can't get into a rhythm with it. And so I just basically just like draw a shape like this, and then I fill it in like that.
So go back to your pencil drawing for a second.
Yeah, it wasn't mine. It was it's Jack Kirby's one of my favorite artists. So I just
You took someone else's drawing.
yeah, and I inked it. And this is why I brought this up because he's one of my favorite.
Can you go to that the layer of the pencil sketch
Yeah.
of the original drawing and
Mhm.
show us with your lasso tool how you like make a fresh layer?
Yeah, got it.
And yeah,
And
show us
so
how
yeah,
you start inking.
yeah. So what I've been doing is like because I use a trackpad and I've never really had a tablet, so I just started getting good at drawing on the trackpad. So I would just go to levels. I'm not levels. I'm sorry, lasso tool right here. Just hit letter L for the key command, and then hold down Option before you start. And so when it's a straight line, you could use points, see? And then when it comes to like a curve like that, I would usually try to do that freehand. And so I would just kind of like all the curves I do freehand. And if
So,
I
so when you are in the regular lasso tool, holding
Mhm,
down the Option gives you the ability to go geometric and freehand with one tool?
mhm. And this is because I have a trackpad and I've come to just I just enjoy it more. Another thing that you can do is maybe like turn the opacity down. So like if I was trying to be 100% accurate, I can now go back with the points and use. Actually, wait. Can I see if this happens every once in a while? But it's like here, look.
Like,
I'm going to
delete.
now delete that section because I want that to be more perfect. This little line right there is a straight line. I'm going to get rid of that.
Mhm.
Something else actually I did. Oh, you know what?
You're
Actually, here's what I did.
essentially you're inking it
Yeah,
with the lasso tool
yeah,
and filling, making
yeah. And
selections and filling in.
it's imperfect, but I have the ability to not have to worry about being perfect. See, look, I also put a stroke on it to make it a little bit bolder to kind of get rid of some of the little tiny lines.
Mhm.
So little things like that. I mean, it's just, and I do this for fun. Like, it's like I'm always building, and that's what I love about making art is that it's just like a strength that I could just keep building. Nobody's looking for it, nobody's waiting for it. It's just for me.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, that's the
you know,
advantage of, or the difference, between working exclusively as a professional artist and
yeah,
working under deadline, and you have to get
mhm,
this illustration
right,
to this magazine on this date. Before I became a teacher, I was working in publishing,
yeah,
and I was in the art department, and
mhm,
we would hire illustrators
right,
um, for different stories. And yeah, they worked on deadline. And
yeah. I mean, it's rough. Like the illustration stuff. Like in
so show
20.
us what you. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please, please, please. What were you gonna say?
No, you were in the middle of answering something.
No, I was gonna say that I still when I was teaching in 2013, I still took on occasional freelance work if it came about and it can get very a lot of times like this is what kept happening. I'd get a job on let's say like a Thursday, bring me in on a Thursday, and they'd be like, all right, send us your sketches tomorrow, and then I would send them sketches, and they don't get back to me on Friday, they don't get back to me on Saturday, they get back to me on Sunday afternoon, and now I have like 5 hours to kind of finish this work
By Monday.
before it's and I had a job that the first time, I mean the second time in my life, once in college I was awake for 24 hours, and in with this job it was like 8 a.m. in the morning until 8 a.m. the next day. Oh, it was torture. So that kind of stuff gets rough with like illustration stuff because you can't really depend on, sometimes it just happens, like I've had jobs that are like, here, you have 2 weeks to do this. And then they call me back. Can you finish that in 2 hours? Literally, that's happened to me. Like, can you do that in 2 hours? Because they're going to kill the job if you don't finish it now. I'm
So
like,
we've only got a couple more minutes. Can you back up,
yeah.
zoom out a little and show us all the different layers that you made on this guy?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Thanks. That is another one of those things in Photoshop. I was just messing around with color stuff, but so I use actually, it's interesting. I've never seen this before. When you create a group, it says pass through. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I don't.
It's the same as multiply essentially, but that's the kind of thing that got really exciting for me. Another thing that people might be into, like here, I could. So yeah, I'll just go through the layers first. Look,
Yeah.
green. I got green. That sets it multiply. What is that? Nothing. And this is another thing that I started to do because I wind up with so many layers. So I've had this happen where I'm like, all right, I got to turn this off because I want to see my line. I got to turn that off and that off. When you have all of your work, and there's like the airbrush thing I'm doing. I'm using airbrush on, not airbrush, but you know what I mean. Creating a tone using multiply with the same thing, lasso tool, and then I do a little bit of like soft brush airbrush in there. But having too many layers, if you group them, you can turn them all off. So all my color layers are off now. And then my line layers I was turning off just to show you, but let me see. So yeah, actually wanted to show you
What did
this.
you end up doing with once this file was finished? What did you do with him?
I usually, what I do is I save different versions as like I'll save it as like the line art I save as one, and I have like a whole system. Like I have like versions, so it'd be like 1A, 1B,
Mhm,
1C,
mhm.
because I'd have like 5 different versions of a line art issue. I put textures on it. Like, let me see if I can find the other one.
One of my
You know,
students, Dimitri, our comic artist, he wrote in the chat, sounds like Togashi.
Tagashi. Do I know Tagashi?
Dimitri, who's Togashi?
He's an artist who does his cartoon called Hunter x Hunter, and he does like initial chapters monthly,
Hmm.
but he got like sick health issues, so it's
Oh
been on
yeah.
a hiatus.
Oh,
That's
he had to
bad.
stop working because of his health.
No, he didn't stop working. He just like it is really slow. Comes out really slow now,
Mhm.
Oh, I see. So his
so
work.
not as fast.
I,
Yeah, his work
Oh, he's
ethic has
good.
slowed down.
Yo, he's good. That guy's cool. That's
oh, you
great
just told me.
style. Is that the kind of stuff you're interested in? I love his style. He's great. Look at that.
So you know what's interesting is before we hang up, um, I don't know if you have noticed or had this experience, but a lot of the art schools, um, art colleges, right,
Mhm.
Parsons, SVA, and so on, when they are looking at student art portfolios
Mhm.
to for
Yeah.
admission,
Hmm.
they request no manga.
What? How could they do that?
It's a thing.
That's ridiculous. See, this is the thing that is absolutely making me crazy because how
So
how is it different than life drawing? You're still, I mean, I get it. I get it. There's
so
like certain things,
that's yeah.
but
Let's hear your
there's
response to
it's
that.
shapes, it is shapes and line. It is shapes and line. It's the same, but this is something that I've experienced myself is that people will not take something like this. I thought that all that kind of stuff was changing. I mean, I do know that for your portfolio, you always want to be diverse, have different styles, and show that you can do realism because that's my bitterness. Like all that matters is realism. That's all that matters. But when you have the right community around you, you'll have people who appreciate the stuff that you're doing. So that's one of the most urgent things for me is like just surround yourself with people who believe in what you're doing. That's your professional network. So
Mhm.
start networking now. All the people who care about you and respect you and are building you up, that's your network.
Well, do any of my students have any questions?
I can ask them questions.
Well, I want to end on time just to respect your
Yeah,
time.
sure.
Thank you so much for coming to visit and speak to us about your work and your thoughts.
No, you're
Um,
welcome. I'm glad to do it. I mean, I just find I just like to share the story of being a New Yorker and a first generation artist because it really is a lot of work and it's hard.
mhm.
You're gonna get a lot of people be negative to you, and this is why I was saying about the community. Like when you have the right people around you, they're gonna help you get through that stuff. But also, like I mentioned about the guy who's been in 300 fights, you also have a way of coping with things that other people don't have.
Mhm.
And keep in mind, most people in the world don't have creativity. They maybe have things that they do, but they don't have. Or this does that sound too extreme? I
No,
think it would
no,
be
no, I think,
people who don't have hobbies, like
or it
they don't.
hasn't been cultivated in them. I
Right,
think that
right.
we all start off, as you said, as children, we all start off very free and open and creative, and it gets
Yeah,
squashed as
right.
we as
Because
we age.
they don't know how to appreciate it. They don't necessarily mean to hurt you, but they don't know how to help cultivate what you're doing.
Well,
So
thank you for being a cultivator and a supporter.
mm,
I'm grateful for your time and your wisdom and everything. Um,
well, thank you. Thanks for coming, everybody. And just don't let anybody get you down. Like you're doing way better than you think you are. you're gonna look back at your work, and for the first few years, you're gonna be critical, but then maybe 20 years from now, you'll say, God, I was so much better than I realized. You really are. You're doing so much better than you think.
Thank
And
you so much. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you
okay,
soon. Okay,
bye. Bye.
bye.
Everybody.
Thank you.